Welcome to the latest episode of Beyond the Bot, where we break down the latest in AI and robotics news and what it means for you. I'm Tony DeHart.
And I'm Stephen King.
We're in the Blue Sky Lab, and today we're talking about some really big advancements in the world of AI. In many ways, we got the first look at this kind of future agentic infrastructure with Deep Research and scheduled tasks, some new updates to the capabilities of ChatGPT's models. We also got a big surprise this week with the first look at GPT's newest model, OpenAI's newest model, GPT-4.5. Stephen, this is a big release. In many ways, this is different from some of the most recent OpenAI releases. How is this different?
Well, for one thing, I think we're seeing a model that is about growing and finding and figuring out some of the things that maybe previous models weren't as good at. So if you think about how a product develops, you have a product where it grows in technology or some of the math pieces, the logic pieces of it, but maybe it needs to also grow in the way it engages with its user. And I think that's what we're seeing here, is we're seeing ability of this particular model to be more humanistic, to be able to engage with its user more and to give back results that are more like what they want in a language that feels a little bit more human.
So, Stephen, is this model actually better at reasoning or, doing kind of complex math and things like that?
No, and that's where the race has always been. The race has been about making better reasoning, and I think they did really well getting up to this point. But this one puts much more emphasis on the human factors and how people are going to engage with the content.
So, we've seen a big push on the adoption side to use some of these chatbots to replace what in the past were, human touch points. I'm thinking about training conversations and, kind of personal and professional development. Is this model improving those experiences?
Yeah, that's actually what I'm really excited about, is that this model gives us a chance to respond more human-like. And so if we think about this from an executive's perspective, I can go and put some of the challenges that I might be facing with my staff, I can put that in, I can see how the model thinks I should respond. I can even kind of game it and go back and forth with that, or at least do some role-playing, and then actually deliver it to my staff. So it helps me to prepare because it's a little bit more empathetic. It's a little bit more how an executive, in my case, would react. And so I like the facts of that. And I also see value in us being able to use the API for how robots will interact with people, because now the response is more like what a human response would be, and therefore will be more comfortable for people to interact with that content.
Now, I want to drill down on one thing that you just said that is, while it may be better at helping you prepare for those interactions with people, it's really not ready to take over that role yet. Is that right?
No, absolutely. And I don't want to be confusing about that. So I think we really need to think that this is augmenting me as an executive, right? It's not trying to replace me or those types of things. We want to make sure that we use it and use it a different way. I can also change the inputs and things that I then I give the model, and also it can give me back different responses. And so it can be more customized to my team. But again, let's remember, it's augmenting me, not replacing me.
So in this kind of race between man versus machine that we talk about a lot, this is another step that kind of gives you as a user superpowers, but not a replacement for yourself.
Yeah, I think it's a great example of me being able to use a new tool to make me a better leader.
Now, what are some of the real-world implications of users who might be leveraging this model, in a day-in, day-out basis?
Yeah. When you look at this new version, it's going to pop up into your ChatGPT screen. You'll be able to use the selector and choose it. You're going to see that maybe that's the right one for you, but maybe it's not. Because if you're looking for more kind of mathematical, logical types of things, there might be a model that's better for that. But if you're looking for a response that's more about how a human might write, then this might be the best one. And so for users now, I would say experiment with the different ones. You got to be a Plus user to get it, but experiment with the different models and kind of see which one gives you the output that is what you're looking for.
So in many ways, it's about finding the right tool for the right job. We talk in the tech industry a lot about vendor soup. And in many ways, we kind of have this model soup where if you're not a power user, if you're, kind of one of these folks that is a new user of ChatGPT, it can be difficult to sort through kind of which model to apply to which task.
It's part of our job as technologists to keep looking at this, but I don't expect most key leaders to be able to spend as much time as we are to understand which model to use. We have to think of it as a tool. And in the same way, I have a drill, and sometimes I put a screwdriver on the end of that drill, and sometimes I have a drill bit, but then sometimes I need a hammer drill. And so changing the model is like changing out that different drill. And so sometimes I need the hammer drill. And then sometimes you try with a regular drill, and you're like, oh, I need more power, or I need something different. And so that's where you kind of learn and go. And so I just say, try a couple of different ones, see what works best, and then let your developers who are digging in and understanding these models, let them decide what you're going to put in your API or what you're going to use on those different products.
I love that analogy. So the model selection sort of helps you is the drill in this context, and you can use a more powerful drill, you can use a weaker drill, that might be a little more specialized, and I think it's really apt because what we've also seen is a lot of new kind of tools that can go on those drills, right? And some new capabilities that are applied across all of the models. One of the most exciting that we've seen recently is deep research, right? And that ability that was previously reserved for kind of the highest tier of ChatGPT user, that $200 a month kind of version. We've seen that now bleed into some of the lower tiered kind of options there. Have you gotten to use deep research, and what has that experience been like for you?
So I'm a big fan of deep research. It's giving me capabilities that would have cost significant amounts of time and money to do. So if you think about how you might have something that might be a consulting engagement, or you have someone on your staff that you're going to have them work on a task to know a market, and they're going to ask you questions, they're going to go back and forth, they want to really understand what you're trying to accomplish. That's what deep research is able to do. And so, for example, the one that I was doing recently was working on understanding what are some of the weaknesses in our business and what are the competitive levels and things that we might see. And I was able to put a deep research task together that went and looked at all of our competition. It looked at all the different products that we offered as a company, looked at what the competition was doing, and showed where our weaknesses were and where our strengths were. And it was able to do this at a deep level that showed that it understood and could give me analysis, not just data. So it was data plus analysis, and it takes a little bit longer. You're looking at about 30, 45 minutes for some of these tasks, but it's a conversation that gives you great value that me as a business decision maker, I can get value that would have taken me weeks and thousands of dollars to get that I now get for my $20 a month just using deep research in a few 45 minutes.
Now, for those of us who might not be, fully up to speed on kind of what's happening under the hood, it can seem like this is very similar to, some other capabilities that we've had in the past. I'm thinking, of course, about web search and, this ability to, kind of send a model out to retrieve a specific fact. How is this a step forward beyond that?
What's great is they have fixed the user interface to actually let you see the differences. So you can actually have the deep research tag or the web search. But if you think about web search, that is a time where you need a fact. It's going to go get it and come back to you. It's going to go get something and come back to you. But the deep research is I'm going to go get something, and I'm going to go a little bit deeper, and then I'm going to go down that rabbit hole, and I'm going to spider out and do a little bit of analysis that makes me think, oh, I need to go down that rabbit hole. The same way that a human might do that as a consultant. You bring that all data back and then put that together into a nice, well thought out, as much as a computer can do that, to give you this more output that can be more valuable with a lot more analysis.
So one of the places that I've used deep research, for example, is evaluating pricing for different vendors, right? And so in the past, where I might have used ChatGPT with web search to find one specific price, I can build a deep research query that pulls together prices and features list from a variety of different vendors and kind of puts that into one document, a little bit more similar to how I would go down a research rabbit hole myself, right?
Exactly. And I think that's a great use case for it, right? Is that sometimes I want some facts, but sometimes I need more facts that make for a deeper analysis, and that's where I would use deep research.
Now, notable to point out that this deep research feature is compatible with this new model that we've seen, and one of the kind of key capabilities of this new model, in addition to being better at relating to humans, is its lower propensity for hallucinations, which has long been a big problem with these AI models. Can you share a little bit about how 4.5 is better at retrieving the right information?
So hallucinations in AI is where the AI makes up something. It knows what it should say, and so it kind of fills that in, even though that might not be factually accurate. So you want to make sure that you are working in a way that the bot knows exactly what you want, what you're looking for. In this case, it's actually doing a better job of not producing that as much of the time. And so that's a great tool. And I think those are going to get better as we see, growth in this. And so this model is really good at that. And I think as we see new models come, and especially when we see version 5 come, I think we'll have the ability to kind of control and see a little bit, see less hallucinations and more fact-driven analysis.
But important to point out that less hallucinations doesn't mean no hallucinations, right? And so,
that's correct. And we might get too comfortable thinking, oh, it's right, it's correct every time. So we do remember we've got to check the stats, right? You got to know where is it coming from? What's the sources? Where is this coming from? You still have to do that deep understanding for yourself to know that the information you've been given is based on true facts in the world.
So they might have cut the instances of hallucinations in half, but that's still above 20%, right? So there's still a significant need for human intervention.
Yeah, again, it's augmenting us. We still have to be able to ask the right questions and know that we're getting good answers. And so you can't just take it as fact, right? You're going to have to still do a little bit of research behind it, make sure it knows what it is what you think it is.
So in many ways, this is one of the first steps that we've seen towards eliminating some level of model choice in the user experience process here. You don't actually get to choose which model is being used under the hood for deep research, but you do get to choose which model interacts with that information. So you as a user don't have the opportunity to say, send GPT 4.5 down a research rabbit hole. It's all going to be this O3 advanced reasoning model under the hood. Do you feel a loss of choice when you're interacting with it?
Yeah. Well, if you go back to our previous video, we talked about this and a little bit of like wanting that choice. And I felt that as a user, a power user, I want the choice to be able to choose which model I do. In this particular case, we got to look at this from a business perspective from OpenAI. OpenAI is trying to make the most efficient model that will do the best for its client by lessening the cost, right? And so which one's the most efficient, right? From a cost perspective, processing all of these things. And so they're making a decision for us. And I think that's what we're going to see as things go on. In this case, I felt the deep research was so good. I think that OpenAI made the right choice for the model for what I was trying to do. And so as long as it's right, I don't care. Right? But when it doesn't quite do it exactly like I think it should, or I don't get the response back that I think I should get, then I want the ability to change that model. And in this case, we don't on the deep research side.
So for that deep research capability in particular, right? But in many ways, this is kind of the combination of some things that we've been talking about for some time here. Two big frontiers on the chatbot development front, one being the advanced reasoning capabilities and that, better at math, better at coding, some of these things that we traditionally look at computers to do very well. The other side being the human interaction piece and, the humanistic ability to relate to other people, right? And, being able to blend these together in a unified customer experience that leverages deep research for some parts of the chat and leverages, some of the more humanistic models like 4.5 at other parts of the chat. We're seeing this sort of combination where you're not necessarily choosing which model you want to use at the start of the chat, but it's based on that individual query in the chat that, is sort of what drives which model is best for that question, right?
And I think that's what we're going to see in the next versions, right? It's going to switch models for each throughout the chat, throughout the whole experience. It's going to switch for us. From my perspective as a leader, as an executive, I feel much more comfortable in the version that we have now because I can actually test different models and see what the different outputs are and then make a decision of which response I like best. And so I like having the ability and flexibility, but I understand from a business perspective why they're going that direction. And if it's good enough, then ultimately people won't care.
So do you still think it's a better user experience for users to choose what model they want at the start of the chat and continue with that model? Or, would you prefer more of an experience that switches based on, what they need in that moment, right?
Yeah, I think if you look at the majority of their particular audience, them making the choice and switching as it goes, A is more efficient and B is probably going to be better for most users. That being said, as a professor, as a leader, as a researcher, I want the little bit more control. And so I want the ability to do it, even though the default might be, let's just go ahead and choose for them.
Because this choice of model selection is not just important in terms of what output you're getting, but there's a significant cost difference, right? Between, how much it costs not only to run these models, but to insert information to them on the input side, and then, in terms of, what they're able to generate on the output side.
Yeah, so the cost significantly has changed in this model. So we're looking at a 30 times higher cost on the API usage to use this model. That's significant for businesses who want to leverage this. So are they going to be able to use it as much as they want to? I don't know. I think there's great value here. And so businesses are going to have to be able to see, can they get value for their customers to use this API? What it's going to do is force companies to have really smart engineers who are going to say, for this particular query, we're going to use this cheaper model. For that particular query, we're going to use the more expensive model, and switch back and forth, or even gain knowledge from one model and then pass it to the next model to use the most efficient use of all your tokens and credits.
Yeah, so you're not choosing, based on at the outset, right? When you're kind of originally planning the task, it's responding in real time based on what the needs are for that question.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, all of this being said, what are the implications for the actual average user in terms of the track that we're on now?
So for the average user, I think we're in a place where I feel much more comfortable with the data I'm getting back because of less hallucinations. I feel more comfortable with the response because it's more understanding of what I'm looking for and then giving me response back that's more human and approachable. And so I think that's huge. So for the end user, right now, play with the different models and see which ones work for you, but know that in version 5, you're not going to have that flexibility.
Yeah, and there's some trade-off there, right? It could be good because it gives you a little bit more flexibility to, kind of have the specific capabilities that you need on a question-by-question basis, but you do lose some of that flexibility that advanced level users and researchers might appreciate now.
Exactly.
Well, Stephen, it's been a pleasure unpacking this with you. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Beyond the Bot. We'll look forward to coming back to you next week with another round of updates.